Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to your online English class. This is your teacher Ms. Pirhe Javed Chandio. We will continue learning Unit 1 Language and Communication with a new lesson today. You can find this unit in your students book page 7. You are listening to the part 1 of lesson 3 of Unit 1. In this part of the lesson, you will listen to people expressing feelings using sounds and tone of voice. Before moving on, let's look at the roadmap of this part of the lesson. We will have a short recap of the previous lesson. We will see the learning outcome of this part of the lesson, the activities for this lesson. We will understand how people communicate without words. We will do a listening activity about tone of voice, and we will also come to know about next part of the lesson. If you remember, in the previous lesson we read about word languages. The text that we read had a structure of question and answers. This type of text is called expository text, and we also answered a few questions about the text. The learning outcome for this part of the lesson is, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to recognize the importance of tone of voice in spoken communication. The activities for this part of the lesson are present in your student's book. There are many different ways of communicating without words, and this is called non-verbal communication. For example, people can communicate through their facial expressions. The human face is extremely expressive, able to convey countless emotions without saying a word. And unlike some forms of non-verbal communication, facial expressions are universal, means same across the universe. The facial expressions for happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust are the same across cultures. Another way of communicating without words is body movement and posture. People always judge other people by the way they sit, walk, stand, or hold their head. The way you move and carry yourself communicates a lot about yourself. This type of non-verbal communication includes your posture. For example, if in the classroom a teacher asks you to come in front of the class and explain any topic, and you are not standing in the correct posture in front of the class, you are leaned back to the board and not standing straight. This will communicate that you are not so interested and maybe you are bored in the class. This is how your body movements and posture speak about yourself. Another way is gestures. Gestures are part of our daily lives. You may wave, point, or use your hands when arguing or speaking, often expressing yourself with gestures without thinking. However, the meaning of some gestures can be very different across cultures. While the OK sign made with the hand, for example, conveys a positive message in English-speaking countries, it's considered offensive in countries such as Germany, Russia, and Brazil. So it's important to be careful of how you use gestures to avoid misinterpretation. Another way is eye contact. Since the visual sense is dominant for most people, eye contact is an especially important type of non-verbal communication. The way you look at someone can communicate many things, including interest, affection, anger, or hostility. Eye contact is also important in maintaining the flow of conversation and for determining the other person's interest and response. Now I want you to open your English student's book and go on page number 13. Your task is to read the text and match the feelings to the pictures. Are you done? Now it's time for listening activity. Before that, I hope now you have understood that we can also show our feelings by the way we speak and the sounds we make. Click the link that will appear on your screen in a minute. By clicking on the link, it will take you to the audio clip for your listening activity. Look into your books. It says, listen to each person and match to one of the 6 feelings. Are you done? Now, listen again for activity number 2 and decide what had happened. We will discuss this in our live session class. It's time to wrap up the lesson. Once you are done with this part of the video lesson, you are required to give your feedback by telling me one interesting thing that you learned from this part of the lesson in the forum activity on Moodle. I'm sure there must be at least one interesting thing that you learned from this lesson. Also, if you have any questions or difficulties related to this part of the video lesson, please post it on forum. I'll surely get back to your questions. So that was it for this part of the lesson. In the next part of the lesson, you will learn to identify and use indefinite pronouns. So I'll see you in the next part of the lesson.